Welcome to the Teach Joyfully podcast, where we talk about all things elementary teaching with some mom stuff thrown in. I'm Lisa Burns, a teacher success coach, veteran elementary teacher, and mom of 5. I'll be your host. Thanks for joining me today. Today, I thought we'd take a breath from all the serious stuff and do something just a little bit different. So I know that you're a podcast listener because you're listening here. Which means, and I'm going out on a limb here, but it means that you might actually listen to other podcasts as well. So as a podcast listener to other podcast listeners, I'd like to share a few of my favorite podcasts. So today I have a short list of some of my favorite children's book podcasts. Yes, there's tons of podcasts out there, and it can get a little overwhelming to try and figure out what to listen to next, right? Well, one of the ways that we find podcasts is through recommendations. So today I have my recommendation for podcasts about children's books. So here we go. Number 1 is Julie's Library Show. Now, Julie's Library Show is put out by none other than Julie Andrews. Yes, the Julie Andrews and her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton. That together they have such great energy and they share all kinds of books, all of their favorites that nurture imagination and celebrate wonder. It is just a lovely podcast. There's always an activity to go with the podcast each week, and there's links on there to find the books and more information about the authors. They bring authors on, the books get read, and they even talk to illustrators and talk about how they create their art for the books. It's really a lovely show. So definitely check that one out. All right, so number 2 is Circle Round. Circle Round is produced by WBUR in Boston. It has sound effects and live music and all kinds of wonderful things recorded with each book reading. And they bring on authors and illustrators, and it is just a lovely way to spend a little bit of time. They are not long. Each one is about 20 minutes. And so you can actually listen fairly quickly. It's a great way to share books with your students or your own kids. There's also coloring pages and other kinds of things that are included with each podcast. Each tale that's featured is some sort of a classic tale. They are truly our audio masterpieces. And there's even a discussion of the moral of each story as well. It's just all around good fun and good learning. The next one I like is called Read Aloud Revival. Now, this one is really aimed at homeschoolers, but Sarah and her team are approachable and practical about reading, and anyone who's practical about reading is in my good books. I think this one is worth a listen. Sarah's been doing this since 2015. She's got plenty of episodes for you to find exactly what you're looking for. The next one I like is called Story Nori. Story Nori is another story time podcast. It's stories for the whole family to listen to, and there's some interviews thrown in as well. The episodes are short and engaging and lots of fun. Average length of an episode, about 13 minutes. Up next is the Kids Ask Authors podcast. The Kids Ask Authors podcast, that's a tongue twister, isn't it? Is literally a place where kids can ask a question and an author will answer it. It's really cool. Each episode is super short because literally it's the answer to one question. Questions range from how do you decide characters with their personalities before you write the book? Or what is that first book that made you cry? Or kids might ask something like, how did you know when you wanted to become a writer? Or even, do you think using the computer to draw and make pictures is cheating? I think these questions are engaging and fun, and they're questions that, quite honestly, your students might have. The hosts of this always have an interesting author to answer each of these questions, and you can submit questions too. I think it's so fun. I can see using some of these questions during reading and writing time. It would be a great way to enrich your discussions about books, authors, illustrators, and even just writing. This next podcast is aimed at a slightly different audience, but I think teachers will still benefit from it. This one's called One More Page. This podcast is really aimed at children's book writers, but it has some wonderful interviews with kidlit authors and information on trends in children's literature that I think all teachers will love. There's interviews with authors and illustrators. There's all kinds of great stuff on here. I think that there's things in here that will surprise you. So I'd honestly say this podcast is for lovers of children's books. If you love children's books, I think you'll enjoy this one. And the last one is The Yarn. This one is a behind-the-scenes look at children's literature. Episodes have authors and illustrators talking about how they create books for young readers. I think it is an amazing way to include some author information in your teaching. Kids will actually enjoy hearing some of these authors and illustrators speak. You can even bring in some short clips from some of these interviews. Interviews range from 20 to 40 minutes, so they can be a bit long just for kids to listen to. But if there's clips and information in here that you could use, you could certainly share those pieces with your students, especially as you're doing an author study. I always think it's interesting for kids to listen to an author or illustrator speak about their own work. So that's it, my friends. I hope you enjoy some of these podcasts as much as I do. Even if you find one new podcast to listen to out of this list, I am so excited to hear which one. So please let me know. So that's it, my friends. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you liked today's episode, I'd love it if you'd go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave a review. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss an episode. Also, you can continue the conversation online with me in my Facebook group, the Teach Joyfully Podcast Community, where elementary teachers can connect, get help, and encouragement for all kinds of education and parenting topics. You can find the show notes and links to all the podcasts mentioned in this episode on my website at www.hopeineducation.com/podcast. And remember, a happy teacher is a good teacher. Until next time, teach joyfully and take care of you.